Hello, good evening, and welcome to a wonderful evening of knowledge, spirituality, learning, and much, much more. Thank you so much for taking out the time on this Sunday evening to be here at the launch of One Day at a Time by Vivek Asrani. To start with, a little bit about Vivek. Vivek is an entrepreneur and the managing director of KMO Fastener Company. He graduated with a BSc from St. Xavier's College and then studied law. Vivek has been actively involved with several NGOs. He was the founder president of the Association of Youth for a Better India, AYBI, and is currently on the board of several social organizations. Vivek has been a keen student of Vedanta all his life and constantly endeavors to apply his learnings and insights in his business as well as in his daily life. He enjoys traveling, reading, and playing chess. Vivek, can we have you in the spotlight, please?
Thank you, Gopi.
Welcome. I'm sure you're looking forward to this evening.
Well, absolutely. Just a deep sense of gratitude for all the friends and family. I'm just seeing the names and the faces around and just feeling very, very grateful for this evening. And thank you so much for anchoring this.
Thank you. My pleasure. So One Day at a Time is a compilation of a series of reflections that Vivek wrote during the pandemic-induced lockdown. He would write a few lines each day from his bungalow in Lonavala and then share these with friends and family. It was his friend Mustafa Doctor who persuaded him to first start a blog and then publish these reflections. Mustafa has also beautifully written the foreword to One Day at a Time. To share his experiences and views, please welcome Mustafa Doctor.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure, an honor to be here today. In March 2020, the COVID pandemic hit India and we went into lockdown. At that time, all conversations centered around how devastating it was for businesses, the stock market, the economy, the world at large. Since Amal and Abir had both just returned from overseas, the Asranis very sensibly decided that the best place for them to compulsorily quarantine would be at their beautiful home in Lonavala. For Vivek, who only sees silver linings and never the clouds, this enforced quarantine and the break from his routine everyday life became a valuable time for introspection and reflection. Sometime towards the end of March 2020, Vivek started writing down his daily reflections and sharing them with a few people on WhatsApp. Those of us who were fortunate enough to be amongst the early recipients of Vivek's reflections immediately realized that these simple thoughts contained very valuable life lessons and learnings. And we, in turn, started sharing them with our friends. And little by little, the circle of people who received Vivek's reflections expanded. More and more people started writing back to Vivek and telling him how much his writing resonated with them and how they look forward to reading his reflections every day. I realized this in particular one morning when I overheard my mother-in-law tell my wife, "Arey, aaj tumne Vivek ka WhatsApp nahi bheja?" Friends and well-wishers persuaded Vivek to start a blog so that his thoughts and writings could reach a larger audience. The rest now is history. Today, Vivek has an international audience. People who he doesn't even know from all parts of the world are now signing into his blog and reading his daily reflections. Many of these readers are writing back to him to thank him for the difference that he is making to their lives. I'm sure he will tell you more about that later today. So what is it about Vivek's writings that makes people, even strangers to him, feel an instant connection? I believe it's the fact that whatever Vivek says comes from the heart. Vivek writes about life and how to respond to situations in life that we all face on a daily basis, as he would do himself. One Day at a Time is a reflection of Vivek Asrani. It is almost as if he metamorphosizes from the pages to sit beside you for a chat over a cup of chai, to help you mull through a problem, to help you sort out your mind. Something that Vivek has done for so many people, so many times, including many of us who are here today. He will now continue to do that for many more people through his book. Before I wind up, there is just one more thing that I wish to do. Can I request you all to put on your videos? Everybody, please put on your videos. Let's have everybody's videos on, please. Please put on your videos so that we can see all of you. In a minute, I'll tell you why. Are everybody's videos on? I want Vivek to see in person the love and respect for him in this room. Vivek, scroll through the scenes, scroll through the screen, and please see everyone here. Because I know that each and every person here is as happy as I am for you today and joins me in wishing you all the best. This is our way of giving you a standing ovation on a Zoom call. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those kind words. They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And in Vivek's case, that tree is beautiful, lofty, and evergreen. His mother, Vinita Asrani, known as Vinita, Vinny, Shakuma, Masi, she is the inspiration behind Vivek's book and a teacher, guide, and spiritual beacon for many of us here today. It gives me great pleasure to invite Vinita ji to launch One Day at a Time and say a few words.
Thank you, Gopi. I think it's indeed a very proud moment for Vivek's dad and me to be here for the book launch, his first book launch. Like all of you, I too look forward every day to read his reflections. And early in the morning, I first start my WhatsApp to see what has Vivek written today. No, not at 6 o'clock. 6:30, yes, it is there. And I really enjoy every moment of it. What really impressed me was the keenness of Vivek's observation of life, his own and of people around him. And after observing what he sees, the depth of his reflection to understand what is happening around him, within him, and around him. Churning it all in his mind and putting it together with the most appropriate examples and the correct words is really remarkable. I would love to everybody has said so much about Vivek. I would really love to take the credit for all this, honestly. But really, it is Vivek's own efforts, totally his own efforts. And thank you, Vivek, for giving me this honor of releasing the book for you. Thank you. Love you.
Mom, I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Yeah, okay. So this is the book. So happy reading, everybody. And Vivek, all the best.
Thanks, Mom. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gopi.
Thank you, Masi. And we will be telling you in a little while where you can get your own copy of One Day at a Time. Before we get to the man of the hour himself, Vivek, there is a special message for you from someone very special. And if you will give me a second, I'm going to just share my screen. Yes, okay. So this is a message for you, especially from Rashida. And I think you can read it. She's made this specially for you. She's been, I guess, the wind beneath your wings. So this is specially for you from Rashida.
Wow. This is really special. Thank you, Rashida.
I'm going to stop the share now. Yeah. Second. Okay. So, Vivek, I had a few questions to ask you. And of course, the first one really is about the title of the book, One Day at a Time.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you? And why did you decide to call it One Day at a Time?
So I think, Gopi, for me, it's really the way in which I try and live my life one day at a time. I think this book is also to be read one day at a time. This is not a kind of a novel where you can, pick it up and say, okay, I want to try and finish it in 2 days. It is not a book where you decide I'm going to read 30 pages every day or for 1 hour. Sometimes that 2-minute reflection might stay with you for a day or for days and may trigger off something in you. So really this book is to be received and read, if you ask me, one day at a time. But I think more importantly, I think the essence of life to me is the only thing that we really have is the here and now. And to me, the only way we can truly live our lives fully is one day at a time. Of course, we need to have a vision. Of course, we need to plan. Of course, we need to look ahead. We need to visualize ahead, but we need to live it one day at a time. And I remember seeing this lovely movie on the tennis legend Bjorn Borg. And his coach, Gopi, had said to him, he said, you're not going out there to play a 5-set match. You're going out there to play 1 point at a time. And that really, to me, is the essence of life and the essence of this book, just one day at a time.
Wow, that's really amazing. And it's absolutely true what you're saying. And I think this has never been truer for us than the lockdown, which really changed so many lives. It was a time when people the world over were united by one factor. And I think that one factor was that they all sorely missed the people in their lives. They missed the connections, they missed the hugs, the touches, even the smiles, because all our smiles are hidden by masks. And so the only way you can make out if somebody's smiling at you is to really look at their eyes and see if they're crinkling. And, a lot of the musings in your book, which I actually have to tell you, I did not read one day at a time. I just zipped through it because it was so interesting. Talk about relationships, with relationships with our partners, our families, our friends, with society, with God, and with ourselves. What have you learned about relationships during this time of the lockdown when you were talking about, when you were thinking about this and reflecting on them?
So, to start off with, Gopi, I've been extremely fortunate with some wonderful relationships in my life. And to me, life really is all about people. And I remember saying this to a friend of mine. I think it was actually at Musti's house, and we were having a chat. And I said this in passing, but when I was driving home, it kind of, stuck with me. I said, I don't count my wealth in terms of the amount of money I have or the bank balance. For me, I count my wealth in terms of the experiences I give myself and the depth of the relationships that I carry. So for me, really, it's all about people, whether it be in the social context, whether it be in the workplace. It's just all about people. And I think when we talk about healthy relationships, we have to keep in mind that there are two relationships that we carry. When we talk about a relationship, we normally talk about our relationship with somebody, and we think that's one relationship. But actually, there are two relationships at play. One is the relationship with the other person, and the other is the relationship with ourselves. If the relationship with ourselves is not in place, we will always struggle to carry external relationships. And a lot of the reflections in my book are really about managing relationships, but also managing ourselves in those relationships. And there were 3 things on relationships I've written in this book. By the way, these are a collection of 108 reflections out of a total of 330, which I may have already written. But in this book, there are 3 aspects of relationships that I've touched upon. One is We have relationship problems when there are expectations. The moment the filter of expectation enters, we start having challenges. Second is when we do not accept the other person for what the other person is. We want sometimes the relationship to be the way we want it to be. So non-acceptance becomes the second issue. And the third is the ego. The moment we operate from our ego, we are blocking the flow of the fundamental building block of a relationship, which is love and trust. If you think about it, the building block is trust. Whether it be your spouse, a friend, a supplier, a customer, forget that, even the toothpaste that you use or any service that you use in society, you do it because you trust either the person or the brand. To me, trust establishes the relationship. Love nurtures the relationship. So love and trust really are the foundation of any relationship. And like I said, the relationship with ourselves is, I would say, more important. It's like the center of a wheel. Every part of the wheel moves except the center. But because the center is strong, it allows the wheel to move around it. If we are at peace with ourselves, we will be able to manage peaceful relationships. If we ourselves are in a state of flux, if the center keeps moving, the wheel has no chance to be sustainable and happy. So that really has been my experience, not just understanding, but my experience of, some wonderful relationships that I have in my life.
You're so right in what you said. And actually, when you were talking about the ego, it reminded me of a definition of ego, which I had heard by Eckhart Tolle, where he says, ego is edge God out. And that is really so much of what you are talking about. And when it comes to relationships, you're absolutely right where you talk about love and respect. And this not only this not only applies to ourselves and to people in our personal lives, but also to our professional lives as well. And you talked quite a bit about leadership, because you run a big company, and I'm sure that every day is an opportunity for you to practice everything that you read about, learn about, have absorbed. And we know that leadership is not just about how much money your company is making. It's not just about its ranking on the Fortune 500 list. It's about the people who make the company, and in turn, what they bring to the table. So what are your thoughts on leadership, on how you apply all your learnings to the company and to your sense of leadership?
So Gopi, you're absolutely right. I think the role of the business is not, just the creation of wealth for itself. Profit is like petrol in the car. Without the petrol, you can't run. Without profits, your company will not sustain. But we don't drive the car for the petrol. We drive the car to reach somewhere in life. Similarly, we run our companies for a higher purpose, or we run our organizations for a higher purpose. And the only thought I have on leadership, and there's a lot written about leadership all over the world, but the only real thought that I have on leadership is one of the most underused and under-mentioned paradigm of leadership, which is leading with love. We associate love with being a soft emotion in our personal space, for our families, for our friends, but we never really talk about leading with love. Machines can be managed, people need to be led. And there is no better way of leading people than leading with love. But this can sometimes confuse people to say, how do you bring love to the workplace in a competitive environment? So this is how it works. And this has been my experience in our company, is we convert love into practices and policies. And that is something which the ecosystem that we're working in experiences from us. So let me give you a few examples. We were at an exhibition, and one of our salesperson, he came up to me and he said, sir, this customer is definitely going to come tomorrow and buy this product from us. So I was happy. I mean, every sale is good, but the salesman was a little over enthusiastic. Again, he came back to me in the evening and said, sir, tomorrow he's definitely coming. And sure enough, the next day the customer came and the salesman came to me and said, the deal is done. So later on in the evening, I called him. I said, Naveen, it's great that we did the sale, but there was something about this sale which got you a little excited because you sell this product every day. What is it about this sale that got you excited? He said, this customer had been to our competitor's stall at the exhibition. Every competitor spoke only about our company, saying that you should not buy from there. The customer told him that when I came to your stall, you only spoke about your company as to why your company was good and why I should buy from you. And the customer told him, he's saying, when I asked you, what about the competitors? How is their product? You said their product is also good. It's just that we have the best value proposition for you. What I learned that day was I had translated love for the customer, love for the company into culture, institutional culture. And we know that culture eats strategy for lunch. You know, we struggle to build culture in organizations. But when we lead with love, culture gets built. The other thing which love does, the second thing which I learned in my work in terms of leadership, is love brings out the nurturing spirit and the learning spirit in an organization. You know, we keep talking about knowledge organizations. So we had Mahesh, who used to be a courier boy with Vichari Couriers, and he would deliver packages to our company. And he one day asked whether we had an opening, and we did need somebody for the office, so we employed him. There was something in him, and within a year, we moved him to our spare parts department to be a helper over there. To cut a long story short, Mahesh, who used to be a delivery boy for a courier company, today manages our spare parts department of 4,000 spare parts. Our senior engineers consult him when we're out of parts, and he runs the whole thing through his computer system. What I realized was that when we expressed love for people and we believe that there's a leader in everyone, it gave us the ability to trust, nurture, and train people. So love brings about the knowledge and the nurturing which organizations are today chasing. And the third is, what I realized is that love brings about empathy and builds tremendous goodwill for organization. I mean, when we talk about the Tatas and the Infosys and these big organizations and their goodwill, it's easy for us to build it as well. So during the pandemic, Gopi, I got a phone call from a competitor who said, look, it's very awkward to give you a call, but the fact is that we've run out of some raw material. Can you help us? And I told him, I said, Prakash bhai, this is not the time for you and me to think about competition. We are both trying to save jobs. We are both trying to serve customers who are serving further customers down the line. Right now, we just have to keep our factories going. We shipped out raw material to a competitor during the pandemic. Now, I could have easily worn the hat of a pakka businessman and said, this is great, competitors going down, I'll have more business. But it was love for the country, love for the industry, love for the customer, which said, no, the right thing for us to do is to help him. So the only paradigm I use in terms of leadership is leading with love.
That's amazing. And I loved hearing your anecdotes and examples of how you have actually led with love. And you're so right when you talk about company culture, because this is something which is changing worldwide. And I do know that a lot of your readers are not just restricted to India. And as Musti said earlier, it's not just people who you may know. So can you tell me what is the profile of people who are reading your reflections regularly, and what is the feedback that you've received from them?
So, Gopi, the one thing that has surprised me through writing my reflections is the diversity of people. So, like Mustafa said, it started off with family, friends, it, right? And it moved to I would still say an inner circle of friends. So I would get some good feedback and I said, okay, this is family, these are friends, and they'll say nice things. And then suddenly I would have, I remember Mr. Machado from Campion School, the principal of Campion. One day he sent me a message. He's saying, I read this regularly and I share it with my teachers. I had a counselor who one day sent me a message saying that, look, this is something which I'm going to use in my next session because I'm dealing with this with somebody I am counseling. I had the MD of a listed company in India, a huge company, I mean, maybe multi times bigger than we are. And his exact words were, and I'm reading out, that just the motivation I needed for today. I had a friend who sent a message. He's saying, Vivek, and I'm reading the message, Gopi, that I promised you this morning when I was doing my exercising and balancing, I was thinking that I am so confused and I'm trying to do all this in an effective manner, but I really don't know what I want. Your article is so good and it helps to dispel some of my doubts. Okay. So that's when I realized that there is a diversity. But there were three, I would say, defining moments in my reflections and what has really led to the book. One, of course, was Mustafa and Priya, who've been the culprits and the instigators in getting this blog and the book out. And trust me, none of this would have happened without them. The second is a conversation with Mr. Anil Swarup, who's the former Coal and Education Secretary, Government of India. Now, he and I were both on the board of Muktangan, which is an NGO, and we would meet at those meetings. And one day, Mr. Swarup tells me, he says, yeah, by the way, my wife has become a big fan of your writing. She reads it every day. And that really got me. I said, here is someone who really doesn't know me, too well. And it is affecting this person, or this person is enjoying it. And therefore, I'd invited Mr. Anil Swarup to actually write a testimony for my book. And the third, I would say, defining moment was when Andre from Switzerland, he wrote to me, and Andre, I'm going to take permission and I'm going to read out one of the comments which you had posted. This is, Gopi, after I had written about lasting partnerships. And Andre wrote, he says, hello, Vivek, what a coincidence. I just had to deal with a difficult situation with 20 plus people are involved in a challenging decision to be taken. I read your post and just wrote an email to them. Your line of thought helped me to find my words. Thank you very much again for a wonderful post. Now this is, and by the way, Andre is the president of the Swiss Chess Association, who's also played Vishwanathan Anand in one of those friendly matches. He runs a great company on consulting, executive search. And I said, my God, here I have educators, MDs of companies, friends, family, people overseas, from a different culture, different context. So that really has been the spread and the breadth and width of people who've responded to these reflections.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And Vivek, one of the people that I know you were talking to me about earlier has been Nick Foster, your friend who lives in the UK and who's a partner, who's with you on the initiatives of change kind of organization in Switzerland. And he's been reading your reflections pretty much since the beginning. And I would really like for Nick to join us and say something about your work and your reflections.
Is Nick there today on the call? No, I don't think Nick has, Gopi, I don't think Nick has joined us yet.
Okay, that's fine. That's not a problem. But what is really amazing is, like you said, just how many people have just read this. It could be through something passed on to them as a WhatsApp. It could be something that a friend gave them, and how many lives it's impacted. I think what your writings also talk about is resilience. And this is something which really, really struck me because I think we needed it in spades this past year and continue to, because so many people have suffered. But at the same time, you're hearing these stories of resilience that have emerged. People who've lost their businesses, decided to reinvent themselves and created something wonderful. Or people who, like yourself, who in the sudden quiet that surrounds them, have experienced this surge of creativity. Those who were completely down in the depths of despair and then bounced back stronger and bigger. And this year, more than any other, in our living memory, has taught us about this resilience. It is what has helped us grow that muscle in our backbone, like Sheryl Sandberg says in her book. And I want to know your thoughts on resilience, because you talk about a couple of things in the poem, in the book, which really struck me. One is when you talk about the difference between pain and suffering. And the other thing was which really struck me was about how you moved from a position of why me to why not, or what now, why me to what now. So if you can just talk to me a little bit about that and how you built this resilience personally, professionally, and how it's impacted your life.
Yeah. So, I've written in the book that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. Of course, as humans, we will go through pain when we go through difficult situations. But the moment the event is over and we continue carrying the memory, the emotion, and the feeling of that pain, that is the suffering. So pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And I think resilience starts with heightened self-awareness of a few things. One is that our ability to solve a problem is always greater than the problem. Now, very often this sounds a little poetic, and there are lots of examples where somebody may say, look, it's all very well for you to say that, but look at so-and-so, or look at the situation. 95, Gopi, the industry which my dad had set up for 40 years, we were competing with the unorganized sector, and we were going to probably going to shut down, or we were in a problem. I came back from a run and I was coughing blood, advanced stages of tuberculosis, and I was 26 at that time, and it was a very, very difficult period for me. But I remember, and I think it must have been Mom who said this to me, that your ability to solve the problem is greater than the problem. And never ask, why me? Always say, now what? And that has really been, for me, the single thought whenever there is a challenge, to say, if the problem has come, I have the ability to solve it. Third is, resilience is nothing but connecting with our inner strength. But we need faith. It's a very simple example. If there is drought all around, but there is a well, first of all, you need to have faith that that well has got water. Then you have to take the next step and learn how to draw water from that well. It's not good enough to say, look, there's drought all around and look how difficult times are. There is a wealth of well within us. Resilience, to my mind, is learning to tap into that. And in life, and I've written this in the book, things will go wrong, we will fall. We don't have a choice. But we do have a choice as to how we fall. And there are three ways of falling. We can either fall like a pot of mud, where we fall and we break, where the situation completely overpowers us. Or we fall like an iron ball, where we don't break, but we fall with so much of anger and negativity that we cause destruction around us. But there is a third way of falling. We can fall like a rubber ball, that the harder we fall, the higher we spring back. Resilience is bringing out that rubber ball spirit from within, that the harder I fall, the higher I will spring back. But there is, resilience is one aspect of life for me, which helps us to spring back when we are down. but we need something else to ground us when we are flying. Resilience is needed when times are tough, but what happens when times are great? When there is abundance of abundance. That's also a risky situation and a difficult situation to handle. And that is where we need compassion. Compassion grounds us. We have a lot of financial and intellectual capital in the world. We need to build the capital of compassion, because that is what grounds us. So the guardrails of resilience and compassion is really what I think keeps us centered on the straight and narrow.
Thank you for that, Vivek. We actually have Nick, who has just joined us. So Nick, if you can unmute yourself and share your thoughts on Vivek's reflections, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I apologize for my lateness. I thought it was a whole hour later than it should be, because I've just actually moved to this marvelous building that features so frequently in Vivek's photographs in the thoughts of the day that he's been sending out to so many. And it's an hour different from my home time. So I am just embarrassed about the fact that I wasn't here on time. I am sorry. What Vivek was just saying about trying to find the wellspring of inspiration when things are both difficult and when they are not so difficult is one thing. Sharing that wellspring of wisdom is another. There was a wonderful advert, I think I did share it with Vivek at one point, in the UK, which was a banking advert, which is also quite appropriate for Vivek, because he likes his figures. But the advert talked about the fact that when some people were languishing and struggling with the pandemic, the people that would get up and go would be writing their book, even though they were locked inside some room. And guess what Vivek was doing? He was writing his book. And I do think that the people that are prepared to share the wellspring of inspiration and the kind of the divine connections that they have built and appreciated, both whilst things have been tough, but before that, this is obviously a lifetime's worth of wisdom being distilled, maybe more than one. I mean, I know that Vivek's mother has been very influential when it comes to really encouraging and inspiring this part of Vivek's life. So I would just like to celebrate the fact that Vivek has been so generous with his thoughts and his inspired ideas. And I think many people here will feel deeply connected to Vivek and would be happy and indeed proud to call him a friend. And I think that this book is just another way of reaching out and lifting up people who need to find that moment of inspiration or may themselves feel quite locked up. And I certainly myself have run dry of inspiration. And every now and again, there's a little ping in my phone and up springs one of Vivek's thoughts of the day. And I've really enjoyed sharing those with my friends. So not only has Vivek managed to break me out of my personal problem, but he's enabled me to enable others as well. So Vivek, for that cascade of love that you are providing through this book, I salute you. And I want to just say thank you very much for the effort that you have put into encouraging others. And I know that, you know, you've probably made a loss on this from a financial perspective. So the banking people with that advert were completely wrong about the fact that you should be doing it. But I salute you even more because you've done it out of a sense of conviction and passion. And I know that that is also something that you encourage in others. Thank you very much.
Nick, thank you so much for being here and for saying that. In fact, Nick, you know what you just said has reminded me of something which has really touched me very recently through my reflections, I received a message. I've been sharing my posts on a group on Facebook, and these are complete strangers. They're not even friends. It's on a 7 Habits group. And I had this young boy who's about 21, 22, who wrote to me, and I'm going to read out. He's from Far East, not from India. Okay. He says, Vivek, I just want to say thank you for your relatable posts. They have helped me immensely in gaining perspective. And he then starts sharing with me what he was going through. He's saying, I'm an undergrad who's struggling to find meaning in what I'm studying. I have lost out on 2 years of my life. I just haven't been able to break out of the cycle of knowing what I should be doing. And I feel a sense of despair and regret. He and I have been in conversation. And I was really thrilled when he wrote to say that he's given his exams, they seem to have gone well. And he wrote back saying, he said, thank you for just being there for me, even though you're a stranger. And we don't know each other. And I think that is the connectedness that is available for all of us in this world. We don't have to wait. We just need to put ourselves out there and there will be a connection that happens. But Nick, thank you so much for the connections you've made for me with your friends and family. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nick, for sharing that. And thank you, Vivek, for that story. It's really amazing how much you are able to, through your reflections, touch so many lives. We are going to go into the last question, but before we do, I want to remind you all that if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll try and take at least a couple before we have to end this evening. So Vivek, I want to ask you for the last question. It's something of that many of us want, but not something that not all of us manage to get, and that is a sense of abundance. And ever since I've known you, which is about 20 years now, you, Rashida, and the rest of the family just seem to have it. And for you, it seems to be effortless. I know you've talked a lot about gratitude. You've talked about balance. You've, in fact, got a really lovely chapter called The 5 Buckets, where you just, your 5 buckets in life, you have to be able to balance them out and really be able to give enough time to everything in your life. So what, according to you, is abundance, and how have you cultivated it in your own life?
So Gopi, let me not tell you what is abundance. Let me tell you who is abundance. I am really, really blessed with mom being my mother and Rashida being my wife. Most men will say that about their mother, and some men will say that about their wives. And I'm saying this about both of them. In an environment of pure love and abundance. And to me, we can either live with a paradigm of scarcity or a paradigm of abundance. Abundance is really a shift. Abundance is a shift in our consciousness from what I have to what I am. The moment I stop defining myself with what I have, but start understanding, realizing, and operating from what I truly am, which is pure love and joy, then there is a natural sense of abundance. And abundance is not about having more. It's about never feeling that you have less in life. And really, between mom and Rashida, it's the pure love. And I know that when the kids were born, Rashida and I had this one discussion. We said, whatever else we can or cannot give our children, the one thing which we will certainly try to give them is lots of love and a very happy and secure home environment. Now, the rest of it, they can figure out for themselves. Whatever else we cannot give, I don't know, right? But this is the one thing. So really, it's about being abundant in our love and joy, but more importantly, being aware of it and not feeling shy of expressing it. That's been my experience. And look, just take a step back and look around the Zoom call. At least for me, okay, I'm looking at the Zoom call. Look at the wealth of relationships just on this call for me. How can I not feel anything but abundant in anything that I do? When you're so blessed.
How lovely. That is such a lovely thought. We're taking questions now. So any of you who have questions, please type them in the chat box, and we will have Vivek answer them. Vivek, any before we go into questions, as we're waiting for people to ask questions, can you tell me how they can get a copy of One Day at a Time?
Yes, of course. So the books are available at Kitab Khana, the wonderful bookstore in Bombay. And again, a great example of resilience. Samir and Amrita, after the mishap that happened with Kitab Khana and the fire, within a few months got it up and running, right? And that, if you ask me, came from pure love for the bookstore. So it's available at Kitab Khana. It's of course available at on Amazon. It's also available on my website, and there is a link which has just got posted. So if you click on this link, it will take you straight to the site and you can buy the book over there. Now for international friends, confession to make, it's available in Kindle version, yet not available physical copy. I am working and we are working to figure out a way of getting it across to some of our international friends, but you can at least download it on Kindle.
Superb. So we have one question, which is, what is the biggest lesson you have learned from this pandemic?
I think gratitude. Gratitude just for what is in place. Second is a deep, deep sense of empathy and compassion. In just, I don't even think I can, but even trying to feel the pain of so many. When I saw Nitai, Amit, Archana, right up front in April, May of 2020, going out of their way and reaching out to people with food packets. That is the one thing that I've really learned, is just a deeper sense of empathy and compassion and trying to even feel the pain of somebody else. That's the second. And the third is responsibility. The ability to respond as a family, as a business, and as a community. We were staying away from my parents, from Rashida's mom, for 5.5 months. Yes, we were happy in Lonavala, but it wasn't easy being away, right? Business was going all over the place and there was no visibility. And the community around us was facing tremendous hardship. We had to learn how to respond. The boys, they're 19 and 21. This is the age we want to just be out there, and they were locked in. So I think gratitude, deep empathy and compassion, and responsibility is what I've learned through this pandemic.
That is so true, because I think as we learn in Vedanta, situations are put into our lives to teach us lessons. And when we learn from them, it's the only way in which we can evolve and grow. And this pandemic, this lockdown has really, I think, taught us all such tremendous lessons. And those who have been able to learn them have really, I think, experienced an evolution and quite a surge in their own growth. And you are one of them. The next questions asked is, what happens inside between an experience, that is what you see and observe, and you, what connecting the dots. So what is, I think what they're trying to say is, what is the gap between observing something or experiencing something and what is going on inside your mind? What about that gap? What can you say about that gap, and how you can respond or react?
Viktor Frankl has put it beautifully, which Stephen Covey in his book of 7 Habits has also repeated, that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our choice of response, and in that response lies our freedom and growth. And there is a difference between responding and reacting. Most of our challenges, including mine, and Rashida will verify that, comes from reacting. That the moment something happens, we tend to immediately react because that is the surface thought which straight away comes. That's more like an auto trigger based on some of the emotional baggage, based on our conditioning, based on some of our prejudices, based on some of the things that we are carrying which we haven't let go of. That's the first thought that comes out. However, if we just allow the experience to first sink in, then our ability to respond just completely changes. Let me give you, share with you what happened. We had a income tax refund which was stuck. Tripathi ji from our office very sheepishly told me this guy is expecting some money and he knows that I'm not going to pay any bribe. So I told him one day I'll come with you to the income tax office. So we went to the inspector's office. I walked in with Tripathi ji and he was sitting there, the inspector with some lady who was talking to him. And I walked in and I said, I spoke in Hindi, but I said this, I said, I believe you were asking Mr. Tripathi for some money. So the lady got up and walked out, not knowing who this guy is, who no one walks into the tax department speaking like this, right? I said, the problem is not that he doesn't want to give you the money. The problem is he cannot give you the money because the company doesn't give him the money. And he is stuck between you and me. And I have come here to tell you why we don't give him money. I said, we're not running a business. We're trying to build the country. That the taxes that we give you through your hands will go to the villages of India for education, health, roads, electricity. So that child in the village has a chance of moving up in life like you and me. Now, the first time when I heard that this inspector was asking for money, my first reaction was anger. And I said, I'm going to fight his corruption and I'm going to show him. My second reaction was fear. That, if I take this guy on and it leads to other problems, I don't want to risk that as a small business. I don't have the wherewithal to fight the system. I said, if I fight his anger with my anger, his anger will win. If I fight his corruption with my fear, his corruption will win. I said, but if I raise his vision and I change his paradigm and I lift the way he looks at things, I have a chance of winning. Why am I not even willing to try? Many a times we lose the battle in our minds, not out there in reality. We are not even willing to give it a second chance. This man stood up and said, I also do a lot of charity. He apologized, and within a month, we had our refund. So here was a case where I had a real live event. I could have reacted either with fear or anger, but I chose to appeal to the goodness in him. I said, let me try. What do I lose? If that doesn't work, then we'll see what needs to be done. As a practical businessman, then I would have decided what to do. So all I'm saying is we need to create that space for ourselves.
Very, very true. Absolutely. We are going to take maybe one last question, which is, what has been your experience or growth through this journey? It is remarkable to see a lesson or a learning in everything you lay your eyes on or experience. Has all this introspection transformed the way you see life? Because it surely has shifted our perspective. And I'm just going to see if there is any other question which we can... So somebody is asking, is there a connection between a sense of humor and your life reflection? And could you consider offering some one day at a time workshops to those who are interested? So you have a new business model coming out of this one. So if you can just quickly take those because we are running out of time.
Absolutely.
So if you can answer all of them together.
So Gopi, the last one first. I haven't really thought of workshops, though I am thinking of an audio version of some of the reflections or a podcast version, but that's still work in progress. But more than happy to talk to a group of people, especially if they are youngsters, especially if they are the kids. Okay, I'm happy to talk to even employees of companies and corporates and others, but really my heart is with, if you can talk to kids and others, I would love to do that. In terms of the humor, I have always lived with a fundamental principle. If there's no fun in life, there's no point of life. And we are joy in our true nature and essence. So even in some of the most difficult and trying times as a family, and I'm not trivializing this, when there have been serious illnesses in the family, we've learned how to laugh through that. There was deep care. Of course, there was concern. But we just learned to smile, and we said, you know what? And we made a joke out of every small thing. Dad was in hospital. He would do all the things he was not allowed to do in hospital. Very concerned for dad, but we kept laughing at the way, he refused to see a doctor. Dad, why aren't you going to see a doctor? He will, at my age, they will find something or the other. But that's the reason to go, right? So we laughed about it, even though we were very concerned about it. So I think humor is just nothing but a perspective of life. And the last thing I'll say, Gopi, or the second last thing I'll say, is sometimes we take ourselves too seriously. I think as individuals and definitely as a nation, we need to lighten up a little bit, have a bit of sense of humor. And if we have to laugh, we don't laugh at people, we laugh with people, but we learn to laugh at ourselves. Before I hand off to you for the last word, deep sense of gratitude and thanks to Bimal and Sangeeta from Vakils for really, really having put this book together. Okay. I know that they've put in as much heart into this book. I don't even want to use the word publisher because that will just completely dilute. But Vakils is really responsible for the beautiful production that it is. And thank you so much, Bimal and Sangeeta, for that. And Gopi, thank you. I mean, you are a veteran. You've written several books on spiritual parenting, autism. You are a renowned author. Thank you for hand-holding us through this evening. Thank you so much. And of course, thanks to everyone for being there. It really means a lot to just have all of you on this call today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. And it was a lovely evening of so much learning, so much laughter, so many wonderful stories. So thank you, everyone. Please go out and buy your copies today. Get them at the website, order them on Amazon, go to Kitab Khana, whatever it is, go get your copies today. Because this is a book that needs to be by your bedside. It needs to be in your library. It needs to be in your home. So thank you, everyone, for taking out the time to be here this evening. And looking forward to the next one, because I know that your reflections have continued. So here's to the next one. And I'm sure that'll be a great, great success as well, much more than this one as well.
Let's see. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, somebody said for the company, they wanted it for their employees and customers. People want to gift this book, but it's something I just hope stays with you as a companion. So thank you so much.